Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The sun hung high over the spires of Valadin Academy, casting a golden glow over its ancient stone tower. Students bustled between classrooms, their cloaks fluttering in the breeze as bells danced through the air. For as long as anyone could remember, magic had been the lifeblood of the academy. The very walls thrummed with its energy, and every day was a reminder of the students' power and potential. Arya stood at the edge of the training field, watching as sparks of fire flickered between her fingertips. The flame was small, almost insignificant, but it was enough. Enough to remind her that she had control, that her magic was strong. She could feel its warmth pulsing through her veins, the comforting hum of power that had been with her since she was a child. But even as the fire danced, Arya's mind wandered. It wasn't too the magic that unsettled her. It was everything else, her classmates, the friendships they formed so easily, the way they trusted one another without hesitation. She had always been different. Fire magic had chosen her not because she was kind or compassionate, but because she was strong. She didn't need anyone. She didn't need friends, or so she told herself. Hey, Arya, Finn. So voice cut through her thoughts. He jogged over, his ever-present smile stretched across his face. His blonde hair fell messily over his forehead, and his cloak was slightly askew, as if he had been rushing. We're going to grab lunch. Do you want to join us? Arya let the flame disappear with a flick of her wrist, turning to face him. I'm fine, she said, her voice clipped. She had long grown tired of Finn, so persistent. They had been friends once when they were younger. But things had changed. She had changed. All right, I need to practice. Finn's smile faltered for a brief moment, but he recovered quickly. Sigh, you can true practice on an empty stomach. You know, I can manage. She turned away, dismissing him, and reignited the flame. Finn stood there for a moment longer, then nodded, more to himself than to her, and walked off toward the dining hall. As Arya watched him go, something gnawed at her. She knew he cared, but caring wasn't high enough. Caring didn't make her stronger. The disruption came without warning. It started with a flicker, a slight hiccup in the flow of magic that most students didn't even notice. But then, as if the world itself had taken a breath and held it, all magic ceased. The spells that had filled the academy fell silent. The flames in the hearts dimmed. The enchantments on the books faded. Students gasped as their powers they had relied on every day, vanished as if they had never existed. Panic spread like wildfire in the classrooms. Professors scrambled to explain the phenomenon, but their own spells failed them. In the hallways, students whispered of curses, of ancient prophecies, of doom. Arya's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to summon the fire again. But nothing happened. No heat, no flame. She felt hollow, as if a piece of her had been ripped away. What's going on? Finn appeared beside her, his face pale. Do you feel it too? Arya clenched her fists, willing the fire to return, but there was only emptiness. It's gone, Todd, she muttered. All of it, Finn said, his voice trembling. I call Academy. I can even cast a basic shield. A group of students rushed past them, heading toward the headmaster, Sophic. Their voices were frantic, talking of a meeting being called. Arya stood still, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. Magic didn't just disappear. It was the foundation of everything. She turned to Finn, her voice low. We need to find out what side ain't happening. The Academy's sixth grade hall was packed with students and professors, all of them looking to Headmaster Garin for answers. His long robes brushed the floor as he paced in front of the crowd, his gray hair falling in wild waves around his face. His expression was grim, his usual aura of confidence replaced with something far more uncertain. Students, please remain calm. Garin began raising his hands to quiet the room. We are investigating the situation. This disruption in magic is unlike anything we've ever seen. But rest assured, we will find the cause and restore order. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but no one dared speak against the headmaster directly. Garin was the most powerful mage in the academy. If he couldn't fix this, no one could. Arya stood near the back, her arms crossed. She didn't trust Garin. He was stalling, trying to keep the students calm while they fumbled for a solution. But deep down, she knew this was bigger than anything the academy had faced before. As the crowd began to disperse, Finn touched her shoulder. Terry, what do we do now?
We don't wait around for the headmaster to figure this out.
Arya said, we find answers ourselves. Lily, a soft-spoken girl who had joined their class only a few months ago, approached them hesitantly. I overheard some of the professors talking, she said quietly. They mentioned the library there as an old section, one that students aren't too supposed to enter. It's filled with ancient texts. Maybe there's something there that can explain this. Finn, S eyes widened. The forbidden wing that set off limits for a reason. It sounded dangerous. More dangerous than this. We don't have a choice. If we're going to fix this, we need answers. Lily bit her lip, then nodded. I'll help. I don't magic, but none of us have magic right now, Arya said, her voice harsher than she intended. Great, but we'll need more than spells to fix it. The forbidden wing of the library was unlike any other part of the academy. Dust coated the shelves, and the air was thick with the scent of old parchment and forgotten knowledge. The walls were lined with the books bound in cracked leather, their titles long faded, and the silence was heavy as if the room itself held its breath. Early moved quietly through the narrow aisles, their footsteps muffled by the thick worn carpet. There was something eerie about the place, something that made the hairs on the back of Arya's neck stand up. They reached the far corner of the room, where a massive iron-bound tome lay on a pedestal. Its pages were yellowed with age, and the symbols etched into its cover seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light. This has to be it, Arya said, her voice barely a whisper. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cover. For a moment, she thought she felt a spark, a flicker of something deep within the book, but it was gone before she could grasp it. Lily stepped forward, peering over Arya's shoulder. What does it say? Arya opened the book carefully, turning the pages with delicate hand. The text was written in an ancient language, one that few people still understood. But as she skimmed the words, a single passage caught her eye. When the light of magic fades and darkness claims the land, only the unbroken bonds of friendship shall restore the power once lost. Finn frowned. Friendship that's what's supposed to save us. Arya closed the book, her frustration boiling over. T-Right, this is ridiculous. Magic isn't about friendship, it's about power, about control. How is trusting other people gonna bring magic back? Lily looked down, her expression pained. Maybe it's not about control. Maybe magic comes from something deeper. That's nonsense, Arya snapped. Yes, we're wasting our time here. She turned to leave, but Finn grabbed her arm. Right. Wait, maybe Lily said. Maybe there's more to magic than just power. We have been so focused on doing everything alone, on proving ourselves, but what if we were missing the point? Arya yanked her arm free. I don't need anyone to help me fix it. If you two want to believe in some fairy tale about friendship, fine, but I am going to find a real solution. Without another word, she stormed out of the library, leaving Finn and Lily standing in stunned silence. That night, Arya lay in her dorm room, staring at the ceiling. The events of the day played over and over in her mind: the sudden loss of magic, the prophecy about friendship, Finn's insistence that they work together. It didn't make sense. Magic was about strength, about being able to stand on your own. Why would it have anything to do with trusting other people? Arya tossed and turned in her bed, the night dragging on in endless hours. The quiet darkness of the academy seemed to press down on her, amplifying her unease. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake Finn's word. Maybe there's more to magic than just power. It sounded absurd. Yet there was something in his tone, a certainty, a conviction that wouldn't leave her alone. Eventually exhaustion won out, and her thoughts blurred into a restless sleep. In her dreams, she stood alone in the middle of the training field, desperately trying to summon fire from her hand. But nothing came. The field stretched out endlessly, and in the distance, shadows began to creep toward her, swallowing the light. She tried to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Panic gripped her chest as the darkness closed in, suffocating and cold. Just as the shadows reached her, a hand grabbed her arm, yanking her back. She spun around and saw Finn, his expression determined, and behind him, Lily's soft, reassuring gaze. Together, they pulled her free, and suddenly, the fire burst to life in her hands, brighter and stronger than ever before. The shadows recoiled, retreating into the distance, and for the first time, Arya felt a sense of warmth that had nothing to do with magic. She woke with a start, her heart pounding. The room was still dark, the early morning light just beginning to creep through the window. She lay there for a long moment, staring up at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the dream. Was it just her mind playing tricks on her, or was there something more to it? Before she could dwell on it further, there was a knock at her door. It was soft, hesitant, and she immediately knew who it was. "Come in," she said, sitting up in bed. The door creaked open, and Finn stepped inside, his face pale in the dim light. He looked like he hadn't slept much either. "Arya, we need to talk," he said quietly. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "If you re here to lecture me about friendship again, I am not in the mood." "It sounds not just about that," Finn said, stepping closer. "Something sinister happening. Lily and I, after you left the library, we kept searching and we found something else." Arya frowned, curious despite herself. "What did you find?" Finn pulled a small weathered scroll from his cloak. It was hidden inside one of the old tomes. "It talks about an ancient ritual, a way to restore magic, but only if it's performed by those with a deep connection, the kind of bond that can only be formed through trust and loyalty." Arya stared at the scroll, her mind racing. It sounded far-fetched, like some kind of children's story. But after everything that had happened, after the dream she just had, she wasn't so sure anymore. "So what?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You think we're just going to hold hands and magically fix everything?" Finn did. He smiled. "I don't know, but I think it's worth a try. What do we have to lose at this point?" Arya hesitated. The logical part of her wanted to dismiss the idea entirely, to keep searching for a solution that made sense, one rooted in power and control. But deep down, something had shifted. Maybe it was the dream, or maybe it was the look in Finn's eyes, the same look he had when they were kids, before everything had changed, before she pushed him away. "Fine," she said, finally standing up. "We'll try it. But if this doesn't work, we go back to my plan." Finn nodded, relief flooding his features. The three of them gathered in the courtyard just before dawn, the air cool and still. The academy was eerily quiet, with most students still asleep, unaware of the strange ritual about to take place. Lily stood nervously beside Finn, clutching the scroll tightly in her hand. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," Arya said, her tone blunt, "but we were doing it anyway." Lily glanced at Finn, who gave her a small, reassuring smile. "It'll be okay," he said softly. "We'll do this together." Arya rolled her eyes, but there was no real venom behind it. "Just tell us what we need to do," she said, eyeing the scroll. Lily unrolled it carefully, her fingers trembling slightly. "It says we need to stand in a circle and link hands," she explained. "Then we have to speak the incantation aloud together. The scroll says the power will flow through our connection." Arya raised an eyebrow. "That's it. No magical symbols, no potions, just holding hands." "That's what it says," Lily replied, biting her lip. Arya sighed. "All right, let's get this over with." The three of them formed a small circle, their hands clasped together. Arya could feel the warmth of Finn's palm in hers, and for the first time in years, she didn't pull away. On her other side, Lily's hand was small and soft, trembling slightly as they stood there in the growing light of dawn. Lily took a deep breath and began to recite the incantation, her voice quiet but steady. Finn joined in, his voice low and calm. Arya hesitated for a moment, the words feeling foreign on her tongue, but then she spoke them too, her voice blending with theirs. As the final words left their lips, the air around them seemed to shift. A faint, tingling sensation began to spread through Arya's body, starting in her chest and radiating outward. She could feel it, something warm, something powerful. It wasn't the same as the fire magic she had always known. This was different. It wasn't tea coming from inside her. It was coming from them, from the connection between her, Finn, and Lily. For a moment, nothing happened. Then without warning, a bright flash of light exploded around them and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Arya's heart raced as the energy surged through their hands, linking them together in a way that went beyond physical touch. She could feel Finn's determination, his unwavering loyalty, and Lily's quiet strength, her faith in something bigger than herself. And then as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded, the courtyard was still again, the air thick with a scent of magic. Arya opened her eyes, blinking in the early morning light. She glanced down at her hands, half expecting to see something different. Something changed, but everything looked the same. "Did it work?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. Arya shrugged, still feeling the lingering warmth in her chest. "I don't know." Before anyone could say anything else, a faint crackling sound filled the air. Arya looked up, her eyes widening in shock. Across the courtyard, a small flame had appeared, flickering, glowing with a familiar orange light. It wasn't too much, just a tiny spark, but it was there. Magic. It worked, Finn whispered, his voice filled with awe. Arca stared at the flame, her heart pounding for the first time in her life. Magic had returned, not because of power or control, but because of something she had never truly understood until now. Friendship, trust, connection. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle she hadn't even known she was solving had finally fallen into place. And in that moment, she realized that the strength she had always sought wasn't something she could find on her own. It had been here all along, waiting for her to see it. The warmth in her chest swelled, and this time she didn't push it away.